world always starts to end on an ordinary morning. The coffee maker was broken again. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the blinking clock on the microwave, wishing I'd remembered to pick up more filters. My phone was face down on the table, screen buzzing every few seconds with notifications that I ignored out of habit. There was nothing special about this Thursday, except for a feeling I couldn't shake. I could hear my neighbor, Mrs. Daughtry, hacking up a lung through the apartment wall, her cough echoing into my kitchen. Normally, I'd offer her a cup of tea or check if she needed anything from the store, but today, I just sat, listening, feeling my chest tighten with every rattling gasp she let out. Downstairs, something slammed against the dumpster in the alley. I winced and checked the window, but all I saw was the same ugly dented green bin and the shadow of a military van parked out front. It had been there since last night. Not a police cruiser, not a mail truck. Military. No one around here knew why it showed up, but no one wanted to ask either. In this part of the city, you mind your business. You survive, that's the deal. So, I sat at my table, eating cold cereal straight from the box, the taste flat and dry, trying not to think about the van. Everywhere I looked, the world was glitching. The corner store was out of Advil, rice, and bleach. My group chat kept pinging with random memes, then suddenly went dead. I got texts from my friend Ben. Short ones. "You up? Dude, check the news." I didn't. I didn't want to start the day with another doom scroll spiral. Ben and I usually joked about end-of-the-world stuff, but lately the jokes had gotten less funny. On the walk to work, I saw more people than usual coughing, some wearing old medical masks, others just dragging themselves down the sidewalk. The air felt heavy, almost greasy. I passed a woman crying into her phone outside the laundromat. Her voice cracked, repeating, "He's not answering. He's not answering." I tried not to look, but I felt her fear like it was mine. There was blood on the curb outside the bodega, a single fresh streak, like someone had tried to wipe it away and just smeared it further. The shop owner, Mr. Patel, was standing in the doorway, arms crossed, face pale. When I nodded, he looked straight through me, not a word, not even a half smile. I just kept moving. I felt like if I stood still too long, something invisible would reach out and pull me off the street. By the time I got to my building, my phone was dead. Just blank. Won't turn on, not even the Apple logo. That never happened before. Upstairs, my boss had sent an email. "Network issues, work from home if possible, stay safe." Nobody was in the office but me and the cleaning lady, who was crying quietly as she swept the same patch of floor over and over. I called Ben. No answer. I called my mom. Voicemail. I called my ex, Jamie, just to hear another human voice, but even that was just 3 rings and a cold click. I sat at my desk, hands shaking, listening to the air vents rattle. By lunchtime, the news sites had crashed or started repeating the same message. "Please remain calm, there is no cause for alarm." The city's emergency alert tone blared, but my TV just flickered and went dark. Outside, the street was nearly empty. The military van hadn't moved. No sirens, no music from the cars. Just the wind and the far-off sound of something breaking, metal on concrete. I saw my neighbor across the hall, Mr. Gillespie, struggling with his key. He dropped his groceries and just stared at the floor, sweat running down his face. I asked if he was okay, but he looked right through me, eyes glassy, lips moving but no sound coming out. I didn't push. I just locked my door. That's when the power went out. My apartment was all shadows, filled with the little sounds of the building creaking, neighbors muttering in the hallway, and my own heartbeat roaring in my ears. I stood by the door, holding the bat I keep for home security, watching the peephole. I thought about Ben, my mom, Jamie, and wondered if they were doing the same, just sitting, waiting for something to make sense. After an hour, the coughing started up again, louder this time. and then a scream cut through the walls, sharp and wet. My heart dropped. I didn't want to look, but my feet moved anyway. I opened the door a crack and saw Mr. Gillespie banging his head against his door, blood running down his face, hands shaking. I called his name, but he just kept going, hitting harder and harder until he slid to the floor, twitching, silent. Nobody else came out. Nobody called for help. I closed my door and pushed a chair up under the handle, breathing so loud I was sure someone would hear it and come looking. It was too late to pretend it was a normal day. Something was happening, and I didn't have the words for it yet. My phone, dead. My friends, silent. The city outside was shrinking, every window a possible threat. I went from window to window, locking each one, shoving what I could in front of the glass. I texted Ben one last time, but the message never sent. I took stock of what I had: 3 cans of soup, half a loaf of bread, a bottle of whiskey, 2 baseball bats, and it wasn't much, but it was something. As the sun started to set, the building grew quiet. Too quiet. Even the coughing stopped. I sat on the floor, back against the wall, listening to every creak, every footstep, every whisper of the wind outside. I was alone, and I knew it. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was afraid of what was out there, moving just beyond the walls, waiting for night. I didn't sleep, not even for a second. I kept the baseball bat propped on my lap and my eyes fixed on the sliver of hallway I could see under my door. Every tiny sound made me flinch. My mouth was dry. I thought about how I used to stress over little things: bills, laundry, what to eat for dinner. Now it was just survival, and the world was a different place. Quiet, tense, coiled up like a snake. When the sun came up, I heard a shuffling in the hallway, slow, uneven footsteps, then a thud, like someone dropping a sack of potatoes. I held my breath and leaned closer to the door, squinting through the peephole. There was Mrs. Daughtry, moving in a way that didn't look human. She dragged one leg, her arms stiff at her sides, head down, face hidden behind a mess of hair. I knew I should open the door and help her, but every instinct screamed at me not to. Suddenly she stopped, right in front of my door. I could hear her wheezing, hear her nails scratching at the wood, slow at first, then frantic. I whispered her name, but she didn't answer. She just kept scratching, a thin, desperate sound. Then, so fast I almost didn't see it, she slammed her forehead against the door with a sick crack. Once, twice, blood trickled down the wood. I stumbled back, heart pounding so loud it hurt. Then, the noise spread. More footsteps, doors slamming, someone screaming on a different floor. The walls felt paper thin. I clutched the bat and forced myself to breathe slow. This was it. It was happening. I tried to call Ben again. Nothing. I sent a text, "Please answer, where are you?" The phone still wouldn't connect. A minute later, something even worse. My building's fire alarm started blaring, shrill and endless. I cracked the door and peered out. Smoke in the stairwell, red lights flashing, people running. Down the hall, I saw a guy named Marco wrestling with something at his door, screaming for help. Then I saw what he was fighting. Mr. Gillespie, his face blank and dripping with blood, teeth snapping. Marco punched him, but Gillespie didn't even flinch. He lunged, biting down on Marco's arm, tearing flesh away in a single, jerky motion. Blood spattered the walls. Marco went down, kicking and screaming, until the screams turned to gargles and then stopped. Gillespie just moved on, dragging himself down the hall, face and hands covered in blood. He looked like a nightmare, but somehow worse because I recognized him. My neighbor, the guy who once helped me carry my groceries. I closed the door fast and locked it. My hands shook so hard I dropped the bat. I crawled to the kitchen and tried to breathe. I could hear Marco's body thumping against the wall as something dragged him away. I wanted to throw up. I thought of my mom, of Ben, of everyone I knew, wondering if they were seeing this. If they were surviving? The power flickered back for a second. I tried the news, just static. Then, suddenly, a government alert took over every channel. Emergency, shelter in place, do not attempt to leave your residence. The threat is active, the threat is lethal, this is not a test. No other details, no instructions on what to do next. Then static again. The hallway was silent, but it felt like the silence of a grave. I pressed my ear to the door and listened. Someone was crying. Someone else was moaning, a long, sick, broken sound. I went to the window and looked out. The military van was gone. In its place, a burning car, black smoke curling up into the sky. Down on the street, people were running, some chased, some chasing. I saw a woman trip and fall, and 3 people, faces gray and slack, fell on her, tearing and biting. She screamed until her voice broke. No one helped. They just kept running from the dead or the dying or the just plain desperate. I backed away from the window. I knew I couldn't stay. If the infected made it upstairs, or if the fire spread, I'd be trapped. I packed what I could. A few cans, some water, a flashlight, batteries, the knife, and my dad's old hunting jacket. I thought about leaving a note, but who would find it? Who would care? I took a deep breath, opened the door, and stepped out. The hallway was a mess. Blood smeared on the walls, shoes scattered everywhere. There was a body halfway down the stairs, twisted at an impossible angle. I stepped over it, teeth clenched, and tried not to look. The whole building stank, like rotten meat and burned plastic. On the first floor, I saw Mrs. Daughtry again. She was standing in the lobby, hands pressed against the glass, banging her head softly, over and over. Her eyes met mine for a split second. There was nothing left in them, just hunger. I slipped past while she was distracted, my heart in my throat. Outside, it was chaos. The world I knew was gone, replaced by something raw and violent and loud. I ducked behind a car and looked back at my building, flames already licking at the roof. The screams and sirens felt distant, unreal. I saw Marco's phone lying on the sidewalk, cracked but somehow still playing a voicemail from his mom. I took it, put it in my pocket. This was day 1. The rules had changed, and all I could do was try to survive the next hour, the next minute, the next breath. I stayed behind that car for what felt like hours, holding my breath, listening to the city dissolve into screaming. The sound didn't stop. It never dipped. Sirens, gunshots, the crackle of fire. Somewhere far off, the drone of helicopters, but they never came close. I texted Ben again. No answer. I called my mom and let the phone ring until my hands started to shake. Nothing. I wasn't even sure if the lines worked anymore or if I was talking to a dead network, a dead world. I remembered how I used to wish for a day off work, a break from everything. Now I would have done anything to have my old routine back. I moved when the street was clear, cutting down alleys and keeping low. My only goal was to find a place that looked less on fire than my apartment. I heard yelling inside a church and almost ran in. Then I saw the splatters on the stained glass, a trail of blood leading out. I kept going. In the distance, I saw a group dragging something into a pharmacy, barricading the doors behind them. I considered begging them to let me in, but kept moving. I didn't want to die in a place that smelled like rubbing alcohol and sadness. I ended up at Ben's apartment building, praying he was home, not one of the bodies on the street. I buzzed every apartment, desperate, and when his voice finally answered, I almost cried. "It's me," I said. "Let me in." He didn't say anything for a long moment. Then the door buzzed. Ben was shaking when I found him, eyes red, hands cut up from moving furniture. He hugged me and I felt like a little kid again, but the relief didn't last. His girlfriend Carly was there too. She looked like she'd been crying for hours, mascara running down her cheeks. "Did you see it?" she whispered, but I couldn't answer. Ben had already dragged the fridge in front of the door. "We're not leaving," he said, "not for anything." We compared stories, but everything blurred together. Rumors, the news, the screaming. The phones barely worked. Every so often we'd get a new alert. Shelter in place. Do not attempt to leave. Violence will be met with force. What did that even mean? Who was left to enforce it? We took inventory. Some ramen, canned soup, water, a few random bottles of booze. I showed Ben the kitchen knife and the bat. Carly found her dad's old pistol, only 3 bullets left. "We have to be smart," Ben said, but none of us really knew what that meant. It got dark fast. I don't know if it was the clouds or the smoke or just my mind breaking down. The sound outside changed. No more shouting, just the shuffling footsteps of things that used to be people. Every few minutes, we heard banging from the lobby, sometimes a voice calling for help, sometimes just the animal moan of one of them. We never opened the door. We argued about what to do if one of us got bit. Ben said we'd know right away, that it'd be obvious. Carly just cried. I pretended to be tough, but my hands were trembling. I kept thinking about the people who didn't make it, about Mrs. Daughtry, Marco, Mr. Gillespie. I wondered if I could do what needed to be done if it came to it. At some point, Carly started coughing, just once or twice, but it was enough to make Ben and I look at each other. The mood changed. She insisted she was fine, that it was just nerves or dust or whatever, but we watched her and she knew it. I hated myself for what I was thinking, but I couldn't stop. The guide in my head, the one that had always helped me survive the world before, was gone. Now it was just instinct. That night, the fire alarms went off again. Not in the building, but out in the city. Through the window we saw the glow, watched as another block went up in flames. Carly started sobbing. Ben snapped. "If she turns," he whispered, "we can't wait. We can't risk it." I should have comforted him. I should have been a better friend. Instead, I just stared at my bat and the kitchen knife, heart thudding like it wanted to break out of my chest. The rules were gone. Nothing mattered but staying alive. Carly locked herself in the bathroom. Ben and I sat outside the door, arguing in hushed voices. He wanted to break the door down. I said we should wait. In the end, it didn't matter. The banging started, first gentle, then hard enough to crack the frame. We both knew what was coming. Ben cried as he raised the pistol. I raised my bat. The door burst open and Carly came at us, eyes wild and teeth bared, not herself anymore. Ben fired. The noise was so loud I thought the world would split in half. She dropped, and Ben dropped after her, sobbing, holding her body like he could will her back to life. I just stared, not blinking, not breathing. He couldn't stay. The noise brought more shape shuffling in the hallway, pounding at the door. We shoved what little we had into bags, grabbed the pistol, the knife, the bat. Ben wouldn't let go of Carly's necklace. He looked different now, something broken in his eyes. We fought our way out, down the stairs, past the bodies, out into a street that looked nothing like the world we grew up in. Ben limped, bleeding from a gash on his arm. I got bit on the hand by something I barely saw, but I wrapped it tight and told Ben it was nothing. I lied. We walked all night, through the ashes of a city we didn't recognize. The sun rose, weak and gray. No more texts, no more news. Just the two of us, what was left of us, putting one foot in front of the other. I knew my time was short. I could feel it burning under my skin, but I didn't say anything. Ben needed hope. I let him have it. The rules had changed. There was no guide, no survival manual that could save us now. Only this: don't trust anyone. Don't stop moving. Don't hope for rescue. We kept walking into the unknown because it was all we had left. Day 1 was over. Day 2 was coming. and we were already different. I don't know what's waiting for us, but I know I won't be the same by the time we get there. If you find this, if you're reading, remember, there are no more rules, only survival.